Welcome everyone to AstroTea. This is your weekly astro forecast that we host on Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard, 3 p.m. BST to take a closer look at the transits and cosmic energy of the week ahead. So go ahead and join our group here on Clubhouse. Share this room out with your friends and family so they can get the tea too. And the 2023-24 astrological calendar is available right now on the website. This is going to be your bestie for the new year of zodiac signs if it already is not and hanging up on your wall. This calendar is actually broken up into zodiac seasons instead of the Gregorian calendar months so that you can align with nature in the seasons with the major planetary transits. We also have new and full moon dates inside this calendar, chakras, body parts, and the tarot. So if you haven't already, go ahead and join our email list and don't forget to purchase your copy of the calendar and the AstroTea journal. You'll just click that link at the top of the room to access all of the tea, all of that information. And what else do we have, Soul?
Thank you again to those who've supported the calendar thus far, and thank you in advance to everyone else who's going to purchase their copy. And I would love to hear from the people who've bought theirs to see what you think and if you've used it, has it come in handy. And so, yeah, like Empress said, that's all in the link at the top of the room. So thank you for joining us for another week. We're going to run through the energy of the week ahead from the lens of astrology and the tarot. So as we're breaking it down, any questions or comments that you have, feel free to write them in the room chat and we'll get to your comments throughout the episode. And then we're going to open up hand raising at the end to have a conversation on stage for anything that you want to share about any major takeaways, or if you're doing any rituals for the full moon, anything like that that you have to share is welcome. So we're going to start with tomorrow, April 3rd. We just started the month of April yesterday, and so we're fresh into a new month. And so tomorrow, Monday, April 3rd, we have Mercury entering Taurus. So Mercury in Aries was definitely very fast, right? As is expected when we're dealing with Aries transits, kind of here one day, gone the next. So we're already shifting into the next sign for Mercury. So we're shifting into ways of thinking and communicating that are practical, purposeful, determined, and stable. Mercury in Aries was about impulsive, spontaneous spurts of enlightenment and creativity. I know that Empress and I, especially as partners, like we had so many ideas, so many possibilities that we were tapping into, kind of like just bringing everything to the table, to the drawing board of what we want to see for AstroTea. So, and for our own individual journeys as well. So I don't know if you were able to relate to that, of just having a lot of ideas come to you very quickly, very effortlessly about where you want to take your life and what direction and what are some possibilities to get there. So that's really what Mercury in Aries was about. Very mentally active, very mentally creative. And we're turning down the speed and the volume now that Mercury is in Taurus. So we're taking inventory of all the ideas and all the aha moments that we had during Mercury in Aries, and now discerning which ones require our time, effort, and undivided attention right now, and which one can be saved for a more aligned time, right? Trying to scaffold or structure, prioritize them. We're going to be talking a lot more about our personal values, tangible results, our finances, self-care, and our self-worth. Especially now, right, since it's tax season, we'll naturally be seeing a lot more conversations about inputs and outputs as it relates to our finances with this transit. People sharing financial information on social media or articles or, information about taxes, things like that. We'll start to see more and more as well as we get into Mercury and Taurus. And with Mercury being all about mental dexterity and flexibility, right? It rules two mutable signs. Mercury naturally rules Gemini and Virgo. It really deals with being mentally flexible, mentally open, and that could be a little bit difficult with Mercury being in Taurus, right? The fixed sign of Taurus can be rigid, defensive, and stubborn. So on one hand, it's important for us to maintain awareness of any opposition that comes up to new ideas, new ways of thinking, other people's values, values, right? How they are similar or different from our own, and not kind of rejecting them as less, but just seeing them as different. Because Taurus can also be a little self-righteous, right? And conservative when it comes to its values as well. Like it has, like values are very, very important to Taurus. So there's something emotional, something personal there when it comes to like an individual's values and morals. So, we have an opportunity to examine our moral code and push the boundaries of our personal values and value systems, as well as the morality that we assign to certain thoughts or ways of thinking. And remember that Taurus prioritizes comfort and stability, so being comfortable in our thoughts and our conversations will be a priority for some, even if it means keeping themselves mentally stagnant or limited, right? So just like recognize when conversations aren't going anywhere, and that someone is more committed to like keeping their thinking patterns the way they are versus trying to be open-minded. And on the other hand, Taurus stubbornness and determination can sometimes also give us the ability to have endurance, to avoid distractions, and to see things through to a practical and tangible form. So this is really great for getting our energy focused, our mind focused on one task at a time and getting them completed into some sort of form that we can experience or engage with. So that's what I have for Mercury and Taurus. We'll talk more about it as it starts to aspect some other planets, but that's just a general overview of what the energy shift is going to be like from Aries to Taurus. So Empress, what does this look like in the tarot with Mercury entering Taurus?
I love this energy because I feel like it's coming just in time. So for April 3rd, on Monday, we have Mercury entering Taurus, and this in the tarot is the Six of Pentacles energy. So today's forecast really begins the week with all types of communication and mental processing, bringing its attention to the value that things have, to the value that things are worth and are not worth. And the Six of Pentacles is a card that brings up the fairness and also the harmony in relationships that you have, as well as the difference between the energetic exertion that you have and what you're receiving energetically that is of value in the physical world. And so this transit will take things a step further than they were in Aries season. I really love all of those examples that you also provided, Sol, with Mercury being in Aries and the focus being on all of these creative ideas that you're getting, right, to form this plan of what you want to focus on. And now that, you know, this is the Six of Pentacles in the tarot and Mercury entering Taurus kind of energy, this is you being able to expand your conversation to the people that you value. Tell them what you're working on and continue to till the soil of your manifestation by communicating to others about it. Other people become part of your manifestation when Mercury enters Taurus, and this Six of Pentacles in the tarot wants us to remain fixed on the goals that we've chosen to start working on this year so far. And so because we're working towards a manifestation that is so valuable to us that we want to see and experience it in the physical reality, it's that important. That means the time we spend bringing it about is also valuable. So keep in mind the people that you're spending your valuable time on, because time spent with them is time spent away from your business. Time spent away from you bringing your manifestation about. And that's also why it's more imperative to be speaking to the valuable people in your life about the goals that you're manifesting. Because if they're also manifesting with this energy, if they're so valuable in your life, you know, as they should, then they will not be taking time away from you. They'll be holding you accountable and working on their own gifts and talents. Neither of you will want to stay on the phone that long. Yep, we can touch base and say hi to make sure each other are alive and doing okay. But then, okay, girl, yeah, don't you have that thing to work on? Oh, yeah, and I have to work on. Okay, girl, yep. Talk to you at the end of the week. Okay, or in a month. Love you. Bye. You know? So it's both of you being on that energy and them being those valuable people that you're telling what your manifestations are so that they're still growing. It's kind of like imagining now the community gardens, or people are going to need to work together to declutter these community gardens that are going to feed everyone. With Mercury and Taurus, that's that conversation that's happening in that community garden. So everyone's able to see what seeds are being planted, and you're talking about what you have going on in your life, what's going on for you financially. As Saul mentioned, seeing social media with the Mercury energy and Taurus, lots of conversations about finances, about money, about security, about valuable things, physical objects, beauty, jewelry, things you can spend your money on, right? Tax season. So just bring all these things into play, but really beautiful energy to open up the week. As I said, I think it's coming really perfect timing, obviously divine timing, with the Mercury and Aries energy, and just really emphasizing the fact that we need to keep moving with the energy of this year. So that's all I'll say for Monday. Let's get into Tuesday, Soul.
Yes, I like that breakdown that you gave about jewelry as well, and beauty and self-care. I think all of those things are going to come up, and I think we've seen them. Again, this is the benefit of having Venus and Mercury ahead of the sun, where they can give us a little bit of a preview of what the upcoming zodiac season is going to be about. So we've had Venus in Taurus. It's actually ready to make its exit out of Taurus very soon. I believe by next week we'll be talking about Venus in Gemini. So we've had Venus in Taurus. We, of course, have the North Node in Taurus. We have Mercury now entering Taurus, all happening before Taurus season. And so it gives us an idea of what conversations have already been coming up in terms of taking care of ourselves and our ability to receive, especially in relationships, right? Based on our self-worth. Like, do we turn away help or support or love because of our, script as it comes to our own value? So those are all questions that we can continue to ponder and talk about as Mercury goes through Taurus. So for Tuesday, April 4th, we have the moon in Libra is trine Pluto in Aquarius. So it's important for us to pay attention, because this is 0 degrees, right? So it's pure energy expression. The moon has just entered Libra, and we'll be having the full moon in Libra in a few days this week on April 6th. So pay attention that the moon has entered the sign of which the full moon will be as well, and what kind of aspects it'll be making leading up to this full moon is very important. So we have the moon in Libra at 0 degrees Libra, trine Pluto in Aquarius at 0 degrees Aquarius as well, with the moon in Libra being in the 6th house of the sun and Pluto in Aquarius being in the 10th house of the sun in Aries. So this really speaks to the transformative power of relationships and how we can go further together when we align with people who are just, fair, and committed to a shared understanding of self-governance and sovereign interdependence. So the moon in Libra in the 6th house talks about how our shared resources and how the more relationships that we have, the more resources we have access to that we don't necessarily need to possess or own or cultivate ourselves. And it's not as like an excuse for doing the work, but we have the ability and the power to be as self-sufficient and like a modern day Renaissance man or Renaissance woman who is good at a lot of things, right? But I think a lot of times we can get easily exhausted when we try to be completely self-sufficient and self-sustaining instead of being able to lean on a community, again, of other people who are sovereign, who are autonomous, who understand what it means to self-govern as a group. And we have way more resources and knowledge amongst this group of people than we may be able to have realistically as an individual just on our own. So it's not any type of excuse to doing the work, but again, because we're talking about interdependence and not codependence, right? I'm gonna be okay regardless, but is this a more efficient, effective system if we all come together as self-actualized individuals with our gifts and our talents and really share and cooperate and distribute them amongst the group, amongst the collective? So it presents the challenge of using and distributing the resources fairly and diplomatically, but it also, like I said, doesn't demand that every person carry the burden of being entirely self-sustaining. And our relationships are a form of currency, and it speaks to, it's not what you know, but who you know, right? Those relationships are very important at leveraging our resources, and how we are initiating and deepening those relationships. Again, because Libra, air signs, sometimes have that quality of maybe not being deep, or not really putting a lot of effort into really cultivating intimacy in relationships. So it's not only how are we initiating relationships, but how are we deepening them to, we're not just reaching out to each other to ask for things, but because of the intimacy that we share, we know that we have the freedom to ask for something when we need it, right? It's very similar, but very distinctly different, and important to note that difference. And how are we initiating these relationships with people that we can trust to interdependently share those resources with? And again, especially since we're dealing with air energies, we're talking about resources in terms of ideas, opportunities, and access to information. So Pluto in the 10th house of the sun speaks to the transformative legacy that communities of self-governing individuals can build together, the new systems of authority that we can create, and essentially rewriting history and shifting the power structures and dynamics together. And this transit is also, as we're leading up to the full moon, it's also an opportunity for us to self-reflect on how codependent tendencies and emotions have kept us from making necessary changes and transformations, especially because of what we feel that we'll lose. So are we waiting on others to initiate transformations for ourselves? Do we feel dependent on external changes or factors to embrace our individuality? Do we feel like being unique invites instability and loss or exile into our lives? Do we feel like relationships help or hinder our ability to cultivate a life of abundant freedom? Do we associate relationships with support or judgment? These are introspective questions that we can ask ourselves today as we move forward to the full moon in Libra this week. And I was like, it's okay, because even if we don't want to ask ourselves these questions, the full moon is going to reveal all of this to us in a matter of days. So it's just a very important and powerful day with this aspect of Pluto, that we can kind of do some of that work ourselves before we feel like we're dragged through it or feel exposed when it comes to the full moon being exact. So we'll talk about that in a few days, but that's what I have for Tuesday's energy. Empress, what does this trine look like between the moon and Pluto in the tarot?
That was so beautiful. Just how that flowed from Monday to Tuesday, especially in your breakdown, and how this energy relates to relationships. So beautiful. For Tuesday, we have the moon in Libra trining Pluto in Aquarius, and in the tarot, this is the High Priestess in the energy of justice and the Queen of Swords, trining Judgment in the energy of the Star and the King of Swords. And today was feeling like the day to weigh in with yourself before the full moon in Libra on Thursday the 6th. Like, it was just feeling like this is the day to do it with the moon in Libra energy. And Judgment in the Star and King of Swords is making decisions to allow yourself to be seen more and more because you feel your destiny less and less. And the High Priestess in Justice and the Queen of Swords is the subconscious awareness of what that right thing is to do. And being unafraid to show your sword with the Queen of Swords, which is speaking and showing your truth as it should be to restore balance to your life with the Justice card. Do you trust yourself with your life? I love what Sol mentioned about how all of us relying on each other equals that contribution towards the collective and the community. Do you trust yourself enough with your life enough to share your life with the community, share your gift, share your talent? Some of us need to build the trust we have in ourselves and our ability to accurately listen to our intuition. With today's forecast, this is that confirmation to continue to deepen your relationship to the divine and begin getting comfortable in the presence of divine, like the Star card, hiding nothing, and speaking your truth, telling Goddess what you really want, what you feel is meant for you, being specific in that conversation, in that profession. Speak as if it already is yours with this King of Swords, with confidence, with certainty. This opportunity will come to me, so it can come to you through somebody you know, right? Like you said, Soul, it's not what you know, it's who you know a lot of times. So these opportunities that you may want so badly, be open to them coming through the form of a relationship with another person. It doesn't always have to be, oh, I'm the independent person because I'm afraid of being codependent. No, you can rely on another person. And as we will get into with the Mercury and Taurus energy, and as we've touched on slightly, right? But for all types of relationships, today is a clear-minded day for us to talk strategy and planning with the Queen and King of Swords here. Masculine and feminine energy can communicate clearly as long as they're in an energy of truth and transformation and honesty. So make plans today for the full moon. If you'd like to work with the energy of someone else, plan that today. Have a conversation about that today. But really getting clear on our position in our relationships, and also being open to deepening our connection to divine. When we get to the end of the week with the moon, the full moon happening, but then after that, the 3 days of moon in Scorpio, we'll find out a lot more why this energy is coming up now in the beginning of the week. So let's get into Wednesday, Soul.
Absolutely. That's something that I was noticing about last week and this week, is that they're very moon-centered weeks, right? I think we are still kind of adjusting.
Yeah, exactly.
To all of these transits, like starting out with the astrological new year and the new moon in Aries and Pluto shifting and Mars now in Cancer after it being in Gemini for so long. Like, these are reminders that we're still changing and adjusting to these vibrations emotionally as they're, shifting. So even though this week the major transit is the full moon and Mercury going into Taurus, nothing else is really happening besides the moon, but that doesn't make it any less powerful, because it speaks to our emotional responses to a lot of these changes and kind of settling into them as well. So with Wednesday, April 5th, we have Mercury in Taurus is sextile Saturn in Pisces. So Mercury is already at 3 degrees by Wednesday, even though it just entered Taurus. Mercury will also be going retrograde in the sign of Taurus this year, so keep that in mind as well. Retrogrades will be happening in earth signs for Mercury this year. So 3 degrees is a Gemini degree, so keep that in mind. We have Mercury in Taurus at a Gemini degree on a Mercury day, so a lot of mercurial influence happening on Wednesday. So this is a great day for us to share our gifts, our skills, our talents, our knowledge, and overall our message to the world, especially by creating an environment where people feel at ease, comfortable, safe, and nurtured, and being themselves. And that doesn't mean to say, like, I don't mean that in like, oh, a safe space or everyone's feelings are like catered to. Like, no, you could be like dragging people for filth, but if you know that it's a space of radical honesty, of healing, of transparency, and overall like you're doing this for people's highest good, that's kind of what I mean about framing the environment where people can at least feel energetically open to receive the words that you have to say, even if it cuts or stings a little bit. And this is also a great day for intuitive communication, as our 5 senses will be viscerally sensitive in our body as we receive psychic information and confirmation as well. So pay attention to, do you get goosebumps around a particular individual, or does your stomach kind of turn, or is your ear ringing, right? Like your body itself, your 5 senses, as you experience them in your body, will be very powerful psychic indicators on this day, especially because where I get that from is Taurus rules the five senses, right? So Mercury being the mind, but also being the body and the vessel. It's how do those five senses manifest as bodily experiences? Where do we feel it in our body, and how does that relate to the information that is coming in psychically? It's also a great day to work with food and plants and flowers as spiritual tools and offerings, right? Taurus being an earth sign, anything that is an earth element, especially also because Taurus is ruled by Venus. So plants, flowers, herbs, food. How can we use this as offerings as well? Again, as we gear up to the full moon as well, which, a little spoiler alert, as we'll talk about it a little bit more in depth, but the ruler of the full moon is Venus, which is in Taurus. So again, just these offerings of food, of herbs, of flowers, of plants will be a really great way to connect with the full moon energy, as well as just Mercury and Taurus in general with the sextile that it's making to Pisces. What can you do to fill someone's cup, or bring ease into their life, or put a smile on their face? We have a lot to give that isn't always money. Maybe it's time, maybe it's faith, maybe it's a shoulder to cry on, a listening ear, a prayer, a meal, a hug, a kiss, right? How can we become master alchemists of charity, healing, and empathy, and really make something out of quote unquote nothing, right? When we think like, oh, I don't have money to give, so I don't have anything to give, but there's really so much power in alchemizing charity out of just being who we are. Again, Mercury and Taurus, it's about experimenting and alchemizing with understanding that we are the value. Like, it's our self-worth and our self-value that carries the spiritual power first and foremost. So we also have beautiful support to utilize our focus intent to get things done. When we commit to a task, we'll feel a sense of ease, relief, and almost like time is flying by, and it's not as hard as we've made it out to be. Something that you've been dreading or putting off may actually take minimal time and effort, and you'll realize the only thing stopping you was you. Sorry, I just saw somebody. Definitely some of us with our taxes, right? The taxes may not be that bad. Just get them done, right? So you may also be in a position of influence or mastery within a social setting where you may be seen in a light of being like an elder or a master or subject matter expert. So being intentional and transparent with your words and speaking with conviction will have you seeing that you have the ability to transform the energy and frequency of a space into something really beautiful and healing just by being yourself and speaking from the heart. So that's what I have for Wednesday's energy. What does this sextile look like in the tarot?
Yeah, today's energy felt so simplistic and beautiful to me. And so for Wednesday, April 5th, we have Mercury in Taurus, sextile Saturn in Pisces. And in the tarot, this is the Six of Pentacles, sextile the world in the Moon and Knight of Cups energy. And Saturn is still fairly new to the Pisces party at this point, right? So we are primarily feeling that more gentle flow into our gifts and talents, and our need to strengthen our connection with spirit through time, maintaining boundaries, and remembering structure to see progress. All of those things, even though with Mercury and Aries to start the year, we're thinking and having so many, prompts to have that creative energy, there still is that in the background, that gentle flow towards remember to strengthen your connection with your gifts, remember to maintain boundaries with people so that you can get stuff done, remember structure so that you can see the progress that you want to see. Those are like gently playing in the background right now because Saturn's in Pisces energy. And the world is in agreement with the Six of Pentacles in the tarot that our focus at this time should be the structure and the boundaries we have around the things that we value right now. And also to make sure we are remembering to choose to see time as a gift that can produce tangible results, right? Like vegetables or food for us to survive. You tilling the soil, you allowing that seed to be nurtured enough to break through the ground and continue to sprout, and your fixed effort to see it grow, right? Your determination bears fruit, allows you to reap a harvest, allows you to survive, right? Provides energy for your body. So how are you ensuring your survival with the use of time? This sextile feels very effortless, like I said, and very laid back with the Taurus and the Pisces energy, right? Like, just chill, bro. But it has the potential to still click and resonate in a deep way with Mercury and Saturn. Like, even when you're high, you can get good ass revelations. When you're on shrooms, you get big ass revolutions, resolutions to stuff, realizations, breakthroughs about things. So really easy, laid back day, but still very resonating message that comes at the right time. So let's get into Thursday. So with the full moon.
I love that. Yesterday I went on a pretty long walk, and I was noticing how drastic some of the changes in nature have already been. Like, a few of the trees around me, they have like cherry blossoms. I'm like, these trees are not only in full bloom, but like the lawn already has fallen flowers on it.
Girl, I was just thinking that. I was walking yesterday to like return the package, and like all the flowers have like fat buds on the top, like they're ready to just blast open, and the trees are like pink, and the flower, it's so beautiful. I agree. Yes, it's that time.
And when you were speaking about that, like, especially with time, it's like, how can we spend intentional time and meditation and reflection in nature so that we notice those subtle changes? Like, oh, that tulip opened today when it was closed yesterday, or like, oh, that tree has leaves on it, or the leaves are starting to kind of come out, whereas a week ago I didn't see any leaves on that tree. Like, all of those very small incremental changes lead to definitely pollen and allergies, because I was feeling that too yesterday. But they lead to the transformation of a new time, of a new season. And just to address Alima's comment, because I thought it was good, especially since we're talking about the full moon, she said, trying to remember why this is called the pink moon, and not to be confused with the full moon in June, which is the strawberry moon. So I actually did some research on the indigenous names for the different moons. So yes, you're correct that the full moon in April is called the pink moon, and this is because this full moon heralded the appearance of pink moss, one of the first spring wildflowers. And other names for this full moon is the breaking ice moon, the budding moon of plants and shrubs, the frog moon, and the moon when ducks come back. And whereas the full moon in June, which is the strawberry moon, this was the time to gather ripening strawberries in what is now the northeastern United States. And other names for the strawberry moon are the berries ripen moon, the birth moon, the blooming moon, the hatching moon, the hot moon, and the rose moon. So that's why it's called the pink moon, because of the pink moss that would start to come up around this time of year. So that was a great question. That actually made me think of something that I researched a few months ago. So to talk about this pink moon, right, the full moon in Libra, that's happening on Thursday, April 6th. It's happening at 16 degrees, which is a Cancer degree, which is really interesting because this is another cardinal sign that squares both Aries and Libra. We got Mars in Cancer currently squaring both of these signs as well. So, and the moon in Libra is going to be in the 7th house of the sun, right? The sun is in Aries in the 1st house, so the moon will be opposing it in the 7th house of the sun, which is like the traditional zodiac wheel, right, of the self versus the other. So for this full moon, we're navigating boldness and courage with patience and diplomacy, and finding the balance of acting quickly yet justly, right? It's not about, like, sometimes we don't have the time to sit and ponder and wait and like, oh, can I get back to you in like a week? Like, no, you have to act now. But how do you not act aggressively? How do you not act impulsively? Like, how can you still act decisively in real time, but with justice and fairness? And like I was saying earlier, the ruler of this full moon is Venus, right? Why? Because we look at it's the full moon in Libra. Okay, what sign rules Libra? It's Venus. So where is Venus right now? It's in Taurus, at home, which is really beautiful, and the feminine expression of Venus, which is Taurus. So even though we may have to act decisively in real time, we're also not rushing, and we're not in chaos or in impulse. We're just in aligned attunement with our spirit, and that requires us to not hesitate. We're able to act decisively because we're just in alignment with who we are. And here we have cardinal fire opposing cardinal air. So we're navigating. What does that mean? We're navigating the spiritual essence of self with communication and relationships with others on this journey of self-discovery. Ultimately, it all comes back to the self. We have, on one polarity, we have aggression and impulsivity, and on the other hand, we have passivity and indecision. So how do we find a healthy balance between the two? And we're going to be seeing a clear distinction, like I said, between the self and the other, which means that some of us might have to establish clearer boundaries while also leading with love when we are in shared spaces of energy and interaction. How do we not lose the self in relationship? How do we not lose the self in shared spaces of energy? How are our relationships supporting our soul's journey? And how can we initiate new patterns of relating that are just to what we need in this moment of evolution and self-discovery? And what is really beautiful is that the sun is going to be conjunct Chiron in Aries and Jupiter in Aries, which is going to take us on this whole journey of, first, when the sun is conjunct Chiron, it's triggering and illuminating and revisiting those wounds around self-expression and our identity. Right? Aries is I am. So all of those wounds, all of the trauma, all of the baggage that we're holding about ourselves, right? Being ourselves. And then as it makes its way, we have the exact full moon, and then a day or two later, as it's exactly conjunct Jupiter in Aries, we have the illumination of the limitless potential that we can access, as well as the tremendous blessings and growth that come with being ourselves and fighting for our space. So it's this beautiful chapter of looking at the wound, or the scar rather. It's the scar that'll always be there, but then we see the warrior story, how we're harder, how we're wiser, how we're stronger, how we've learned so much as a result of those scars, and how those things have made us who we are today. So with that being said, definitely make sure you're subscribed to our email list, which you can find in the link at the top of the room, because we do send out reports for each new moon and full moon. So we'll have how it affects your sun sign, your rising sign. We'll have the corresponding tarot cards. We have our oracle polls, so you'll get a reading from Empress and myself for this full moon in Libra. So definitely, if you haven't already signed up to our email list, do so now so that you can get your report for the full moon in Libra in time to understand how to work with this energy. So Empress, what does this full moon in Libra look like to you and through the lens of the tarot?
Yes, on April 6th, we have the full moon in Libra. The sun in Aries is opposing the moon in Libra. And in the tarot, this is the Three of Wands opposing the High Priestess in Justice and the Queen of Swords. And today, for the High Priestess, the focus is on what truths are being suppressed that work against the manifestations you're focused on manifesting right now, or should be focused on right now. Whatever feelings and emotions are tied to these things are what will be predominantly expressed by you today with the full moon. This is a moment where all of our emotions come to the surface to be revealed like the full moon. So if you're feeling excited about the direction that you're going in on this day with your relationships, you're happy about the growth you've seen in the relationships you have with yourself, and you're excited about how you have been working on and stabilizing your emotions in situations with other people, all of that will show today, right? I love what Soul said. How do we not lose self in shared spaces? When you're in shared spaces, how do you conduct yourself emotionally? This has been a trending topic for us in AstroTea. right? Ending out last year's energy to come into this new cycle. If you're not really focusing on anything right now, if you allowed with the Mercury and Aries for you to have so many creative ideas, but you're still not committing to focusing on anything, if there is more confusion than clarity at the point of the full moon in Libra, and if you're not feeling the best about the challenges that you're facing in relationships of all kinds, that will also show today. So with the energy, the only way to get your head out of the clouds is to go through the clouds and acknowledge what the clouds are made of and what makes them come around to cloud your view. And with this fire and air energy, I love that you also talked about the cardinal fire and the cardinal air. You have to talk about that, right? With the fire and air energy that I was seeing, candle gazing came to mind specifically today. Candle gazing, using the flame as a lighthouse to focus your way through any feelings and distracting thoughts to clear skies that are waiting on the shore. One of the biggest questions today is about coexisting. Why do I feel this opposition to this person, place, or situation? When did the lack of harmony and balance begin? With any of the emotions that come up strongly today in response to people, right? That you engage in dialogue with, or just listen to yourself. Just listen to yourself about why. Journaling, mirror work, and speaking can all assist today in letting the energy flow in the way that it's supposed to. So definitely check out the full moon email on this day as well to get your personal guide with all the tea. You can walk right through, and process everything in the best way for you. But this is a really powerful day as well. And thanks again for that analysis with the pink moon and the strawberry moon. I really loved that with the pink moss, because most of the flowers that I've been seeing have been pink, like especially on the trees and the flowers that are budding. So loved that. And thanks, Alima, for the question. But let's get into Friday. So
yes, and that's a great reminder for me as well. Since I have all of the notes written down for each full moon and the indigenous names, we can definitely cover that in our episodes and in our email breakdowns as well about the full moons, because I think it's really important that all the indigenous names for the moons have to do with the cycles, that always grounds us in the fact that we are following nature and that we're in alignment with nature and natural cycles. So that's what the moons were named after, of like different events or transitions that were happening during that particular point of a season or a shift. So I think the names are really important for us to like honor and be aware of and feel grounded in. So I can definitely incorporate that more in the full moons that we discuss from here on out. So Friday, April 7th, it's Good Friday. We have the moon in Scorpio squaring Pluto in Aquarius. So this is very interesting because we're still at 0 degrees, right? Pluto is a very slow moving planet. So Pluto will be at 0 degrees Aquarius for a while before it actually goes retrograde in June, I believe, back into Capricorn. So the moon has just entered Scorpio at this point, 0 degrees Scorpio squaring 0 degrees Aquarius, which is pure energy. Whenever we're talking about 0 degrees, there's no other like influence or correspondence to that energy. So we're talking about like raw, unfiltered scorpionic energy squaring raw, unfiltered Aquarian energy. And of course we have Pluto in Aquarius, and we're dealing with Scorpio. So it's very intense energy. And it's a shift from earlier in the week where we had the moon trining Pluto, which was like, oh, like that's so nice, that's supportive and uplifting. And now we have a square, which is creating a lot of tension and ultimately very transformative power that could either equally be healing or dangerous. At this moment, it's likely that we might feel strong feelings that are bubbling to the surface, right? Potentially feelings of frustration, of anger, of bitterness, of hostility. We may be holding on to guilt, shame, anger, revenge, desire for power, forcefully taking our power back, grudges, or making people pay for the hurt that they've caused. And the danger lies in the emotional detachment of Aquarius, right? Pluto in Aquarius, that can act on these repressed emotions without feeling a thing, you know? Which is that's why it's a little bit kind of dangerous. I feel like we could see like internet stalkers, or like, you know, revealing or exposing information on the internet or things like that, or revenge, or kind of like secrecy, especially like stalkers and things like that on online or virtual spaces, with this kind of energy. And it's also, you know, again, energy is very fluid, so it's like it's very healing and beautiful and transformative, but it's also like, remember that the moon is fallen in Scorpio, so it doesn't really like to be here. And it's hard for a moon and Scorpio person to take control of their emotions. Yes, it's a water sign. Yes, the moon is naturally at home in Cancer. So you would think, oh, moon in Scorpio, it's another water sign. But I'll talk a little bit more on Saturday's transit, I believe, about why the moon doesn't really like to be in Scorpio. There's a conflict of interest, to say the least. So on this day, the time has come to embrace the truth that these feelings have to offer. I do think there is a transformative capability as long as we're willing to let go of certain controls or certain emotions. Definitely with like these things that I talked about with shame, anger, power, revenge. Like when we allow those things to shift and move through us, we reveal the truth that those feelings have brought us in the first place. And I think a lot of that is wanting to transform to a place where we feel powerful and empowered and safe and confident and bold to pursue the things that the changes that we want to see in our own life, right? And beyond our own life. Like, for example, you know, systems of powerlessness, for example, against women, right? That Pluto and Aquarius, what transformations do we want to see for this group entirely? What kind of society do we want to have for women? I want to walk around and not feel unsafe, not have to watch my back, not have to carry pepper spray, not have to be afraid of walking at night. Like all of those feelings that we have about anger towards a culture that doesn't make us feel safe as a group, right? Whether it be women or whether it be, you know, insert whatever group you're kind of talking about or referring to. How do we have the capacity to feel powerful and empowered, right? So emotional truth usually underlies an event or an activity. So it's important for us to let go of control, of the need to control everything, and see what insights truly arise from this square, because there is tension, so there's something that needs to be expressed. So wait for this tension to subside before taking action, especially if it's like revenge or wanting to make people pay. Like allow the tension to reveal what is really at the root before acting on that need to make people pay. So that's what I have for Friday. It's kind of dark, intense energy right after this full moon in Libra. So I'm excited to hear what you had for this transit, Empress.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's a bit grim after the full moon in Libra because it's literally 3 days of moon transits that are the moon in Scorpio, and as you just said, it's fallen. So it's, you know, it's just like we said, the moon has been coming up. We just need to sort through a lot of things, clear out the clutter, which is, you know, basically the analysis that I was seeing for the 3 days with the moon in Scorpio. But for today, Friday, Good Friday, which is going to be April 7th, we have the moon in Scorpio squaring Pluto in Aquarius, and this is the Seven of Cups in the Tarot, squaring Judgment in the Star and the King of Swords energy. And not deciding is deciding. Because there has not been a proper cleansing of old energy for some of us in the collective, the energy is still taking up space in our lives and keeping our energy divided, as well as scared and confused. And I love that you mentioned internet stalkers, just like this could be old energy with the Seven of Cups of like exes, of like people that you have unresolved things with, that you didn't set clear boundaries because you didn't make a decision. You were in that indecisive energy of the Seven of Cups, right? And so this is keeping that energy divided between you holding on to what's old in terms of energy and you clearing the space, spring cleaning, clearing the clutter for new energy to come in with this new cycle that we've now entered. So this is preventing us from also pouring into ourselves and being immersed in the collective, because we're trying to hold on to the vessels we've begun to collect, putting them aside for that one special day when it feels right and it doesn't hurt so much, or it doesn't cost so much, or it doesn't take so much strength from us, or it doesn't feel so chaotic or destructive to our emotional stability. I'm going to just put this cup aside and wait until that day when it doesn't feel that bad or intense with the Scorpio energy. And it will never feel like the right time to heal and work on certain aspects of our journey that are challenging to us emotionally. And waiting on the right time is blocking the right time from happening, right? Waiting on the right time is blocking the right time from happening. And there is no waiting for the right time, because you make the right time by acting in the midst of the wrong time. And that is what transforms your life. You cannot hold on to old energy and want to benefit from new energy. Space needs to be made by pouring out, by sharing what you've been holding on to. With who? This is the scary part. Are you ready? The collective. Our transformation stories help to encourage the entire collective to transform. Pluto is in Aquarius now. Emotions that you hold onto that are tied to money and sex and death and lies and cowardice and destruction and fighting and temptation and seduction can be some of the heaviest emotions to carry alone. Communicating experiences tied to these things can be very scary to share. We all feel that. But once shared, those things can be very liberating, because you realize that others in the collective share similar experiences and you are not alone. This will eliminate confusion about how to share your gifts and talents with the world, because now you're able to see your experiences as the things that make you more powerful. And that's the whole point of going through challenges, to make you more powerful, to transform you, to level you up. And so when you take the perspective of seeing it as that, you unlock the ability to walk through the transformation into feeling that power that's available to you through that challenge. So really powerful energy to literally be right after the full moon in Libra and on Good Friday. Let's get into the weekend, soul.
That's not even the scary part. I was like, what is the scary part? I was like, that was pretty scary to me. So as we move into the weekend, we have Saturday, April 8th. We have the sun in Aries in conjunct the moon in Scorpio, or quincunx, whichever word you prefer. And this is happening at 18 degrees, which is a Virgo degree. And the moon in Scorpio will be in the 7th house of the sun. So we have both sides of Mars here. This is an interesting day because we have both sides of Mars. We have Aries, which is the masculine side, and Scorpio, which is the feminine side of Mars. But then because of the planets that we're talking about both luminaries, the sun and the moon, and the sun is exalted in Aries and the moon is fallen in Aries, and they're both at some sort of awkward misunderstanding with each other, despite the fact that they're both ruled by Mars. And that's because when you think about Aries, right, especially with the sun here, right, that masculine force of the sun in Aries is very much like, let's go, like, you know, guns blazing, plowing through, really just impulsively exerting that masculine expression. Whereas the moon in Scorpio is like, you can think about it as like guerrilla warfare, right? Where you have people hidden in the trees, or they're camouflage, hiding in bushes, setting up trap doors, right? Thinking about the scorpion, right? Looking at the scorpion as like, I can't remember how long they can wait for, like months at a time in a frozen position, like waiting for the perfect moment to strike. So even though they are both about that Mars battle and violence and bloodshed and, you know, conquering and you know, just like like conquering or exerting their power over another person, place, or thing, their strategy is very, very different. Whereas Aries is not thinking so much, right? Even though Aries rules the head, they're going head first. They're just diving in head first. I'm figuring it out as I go. But Scorpio is very calculated, very meticulous, very patient, very strategic in its initiative. So there's kind of like a conflict between these two forces. And why I was talking about the moon being fallen in Scorpio being a conflict of interest is because the moon is about matriarchal expression of emotion and care, whereas Scorpio's like innate way of moving is about gaining power or control over an emotion or over knowledge. So it's like there's some sort of personal interest in wanting to control or show power or take power over another thing, when you're in the energy of the moon, which is about, oh, I want to care for you. You know, I don't have any self-interest in mind. I want to nurture you to be your best self. I want to provide for you. With Scorpio, it's not energetically free, necessarily speaking. So with the sun in Aries at a misunderstanding with the moon in Scorpio, we can look to this 18 degrees of Virgo of discerning what battle strategy are we going to implement. We know that both of these luminaries want the same thing, which is some sort of action, which is some sort of resolution to tension, or we see a complex problem that we want to solve, right? But this is an opportunity for us to discern, okay, what is our strategy going to be? Are we going to dive in head first and accept the consequences that might come with that, in terms of, listen, I'll just figure it out when I get there, as I go? Or moon in Scorpio, we risk maybe not seeming as someone who is as decisive or as confident or as this, and you're like, just watch, I'm gonna get my lick back in about 3 months. You just watch. In the moment where you're not expecting me to act because you know, kind of downplayed me, okay, that's when the Scorpion is gonna strike. Right. Popping out the bushes like, girl, I've been watching your campsite for the past 3 months. You thought shit was sweet. So that's really where it is for us. Again, like, especially with the moon in Scorpio being in the 7th house of the sun, asking ourselves, like, are the thoughts of other people and how we're perceived impacting the strategy that we use, right? Do we have a fear of being patient and strategic because it may not make us seem as strong or as confident or as decisive in a particular moment? Or, you know, are we afraid of seeming clumsy or impulsive, and that's what keeps us from being definitive and kind of just waiting things out because we don't want to be seen a certain way? So with the 7th house, recognize when external influences are making their way into, like, getting in our head about our battle plan. And it's really about Sun and Aries, discern what is best for the self, right? In this moment, pray for discernment, ask for clarity of, like, is this a moment where I just charge forward, or is this a moment where I take a step back and watch how things unfold and come in at the perfect time? That's how we relieve the misunderstanding, because, like I said, both of them are out for blood, out for war. So it really determines on the strategy that we utilize. So that's what I have for Saturday's energy. What does this look like in the tarot?
Yes, like you said, Chrissy, Missy said Scorpios are patient, Aries are impulsive, but together it's an amazing, productive energy. So exactly like your example, when you're like, Scorpio will wait in the bushes to get their lick back. You know, Aries will go head first. Exactly for this energy. I love this Saturday coming into the weekend. We have the sun in Aries in conjunct the moon in Scorpio once again, and we have in the tarot the Seven of Cups. That's going to be the Three of Wands, in conjunct the Seven of Cups energy. Let me put the sun before the moon. So there is always a bit of turbulence on takeoff, right? Whenever you're about to take off of something, whenever you first start doing something to get your bearings, thinking of like a baby, right? At this point, we're still in Aries season. A baby still has to kind of fumble around. It doesn't know how to walk. It's kind of clumsy, doesn't really know how to handle things, to hold things properly, right? So there's always that bit of turbulence on takeoff, that uncomfortability. So today's forecast is a result of you sharing perhaps suppressed heavy emotions, getting more accustomed to the relationship dynamic between you and the others in the collective, as we've now come into Mercury in Taurus, where we're now communicating our value with others in that community garden that I used an example for earlier this week. So expect to feel slight stress between what you want to create and what you have to sort through to see everything fully come together, right? Which is that Aries and Scorpio energy we're speaking to. Today's energy is about remembering that life is a marathon, not a sprint, right? The Aries is like, I just want this. I know I have to go after this. And it's like, it takes more than just seeing this and then running towards it. There takes the Taurus season, the Gemini, the Cancer, the Virgo, the Leo. You have to go through the entire zodiac wheel to make it all the way around and cross the finish line in Pisces, right? And so it's remembering that, yes, in Aries season, we're focused on ourselves. We want to get things done. We want to see results. We want to feel stability. We want to be in charge. We want to be the best leader. But guess what? We still have a whole year left. So while it's great to be ambitious and passionate and excited about our goals, today is a reminder that Rome was not built in a day. Don't get stressed out if things come up that you didn't plan for or that could get in the way of your focus. Take the opportunity instead to plan another route and problem solve. This is what happens when you're growing vegetables, when you're planting seeds, and then you see the crows start coming and the squirrels start coming and all the animals and predators that you didn't anticipate, because this is your first year really growing a garden, right? And so now you're like, I'm just going to plant these seeds and then tend to it and it's going to be all good. But you didn't anticipate that neighborhood cat that likes to use other people's back gardens as the litter box. You didn't anticipate that. So now all you have to do is plan another route and problem solve. Look at all of your choices of routes today and select the one that will still allow you to reach your destination. I had to hit X on that call that just happened to reach my destination of finishing this transit. But, select. When you type in where you want to go on navigation systems, it will give you options as to how you can get there. Some of them may have traffic. Some of them have, it'll give you the times, right? Look at your choices today and select the one that will still allow you to reach your destination, but now it just has an adjusted arrival time based on the traffic, right? Use this energy to practice working on patience as well, right? The difference between the Aries and the Scorpio. You still, that difference between the energy, because our energy while we wait for our manifestations is imperative. And I think that's one of the main energies in terms of Scorpio, and the difference in that Aries and Scorpio energy is that Scorpio is like, I am continuing to keep my intention and focus while this time is going by, right? Until I see it through. Because Scorpio is also a fixed energy like Taurus, right? So really powerful energy for today. Let's go ahead and get to Easter Sunday, soul.
So to close out with Sunday, April 9th, which, like Empress said, is Easter, we have the moon in Scorpio opposing Venus in Taurus, and this is also a very beautiful day. There's just a lot of internal opportunities this week and to shift our perspective. So just how we talked about for Saturday, that Virgo degree was the discernment to balance the awkward interaction between the sun and moon. For Sunday, we have the Gemini degree. So again, this mercurial element that, again, it's going to be a little bit tough because having Mercury in Taurus, we're going to want to be rigid and say, like, I want to see it this way, so this is the way that it is, and this is the way that I'm going to see it. We have the predisposition of being kind of rigid in our ways of thinking and observing things, but it's also this duality and flexibility and mutability of that mercurial energy, in this case Gemini, that helps us to resolve balances and conflict. So on Sunday, we have the moon in Scorpio opposing Venus in Taurus happening at a Gemini degree. So this Gemini is going to come in handy in navigating, okay, what does the moon in Scorpio want, right? Being fallen there. And also, what does Venus in Taurus want, being at home there? How can I reconcile this conflict through some sort of perspective shift, some sort of looking at the situation differently or considering a different option or possibility with this Gemini degree? And Venus being at home in Taurus is again reminding us to examine further within ourselves how we are the value, like just us being ourselves in every room that we go to, every space that we occupy, every conversation we have, every relationship that we are a part of, the value of peace, of calmness, of comfort, of stability, of structure, of fortitude, of empowerment that we bring into these spaces. And sometimes, like, what is that reciprocity that we get back? You know, again, it's looking at two signs, two house spaces, right? Because Venus is in the second house of the sun, the moon in Scorpio is in the eighth house. That's traditionally in the zodiac where they are, right? Taurus being in the second house, Scorpio being in the eighth. Two houses that we talk about money a lot and finances a lot, but how do we shift the conversation now that we're talking about Venus? Yes, but we're talking about the moon as well. What does that value look like when we're not necessarily talking about money? Like, what does reciprocity look like in terms of our emotions, in terms of intimacy, in terms of the transformative power of communication, of community building, of nurturing, right? I think this is an opportunity for us to see, like, when we give without the fear of being taken advantage of, and we give and kind of it's kind of like our spiritual bank. When are we cashing out and when are we cashing in? When we really are giving of our spiritual bank, we'll be surprised at the moments of when we're worried about running low. How are we paid back? How have we cultivated a community of people? Like, I don't want it to sound this way, but you've cultivated IOUs. You know, people are like, girl, I got you. When I get this money, right? Or like your reading or your insight or your download, your communication to me really helped to transform my life. And now that I'm in a place to give, I want to give back to you. You know, the communities that we've been able to cultivate based on our value, the magnetism and light that we bring into these spaces, and how people are able to transact and reciprocate that energy in ways that are beyond our imagination. It may not be literally money, or it could be money, but not in that literal moment. You're not exchanging, you know, money for this good or service in this moment, but that doesn't mean that in a year, in 6 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, that is not going to come back to you with equal magnitude. So what would our giving style look like if we weren't afraid of being taken advantage of, if we weren't so stuck on, okay, where's my reciprocity? Where am I getting this back? It's like understanding that what we put into the universe just by wanting to be our best self, that energy is going to come back. And our ability to let go of it and not try to control it or measure it or quantify it is what's going to help it, like, freely come back to us in the moment that we need it most. And it comes unexpectedly just because we're willing to shift that perspective of like, people don't owe us anything. So if we do things from the bottom of our heart without anything in return and then just let it go, we're opening that spiritual bank up to be deposited into in waves of equal magnitude that we gave in. So, how do we cultivate that community of people who are like, wow, like she really gave me something, he really gave me something in a moment that I really needed that encouragement, and they didn't ask me for a single thing in return. So for that reason, I want to help them now that I have the resources and the support to be able to uplift them just like they uplifted me in my time of isolation or my time of struggle. So I think it's a beautiful transit and a beautiful opportunity for us to really be giving, like to give of our heart and give with our full selves without expectation, and to see the powerful energy that we're sending into the world that we're also inviting to receive back at any given moment. So that's what I have for Sunday. Empress, you can close us out with this beautiful opposition that we have.
Yes, what a divine transit to happen on this Easter Sunday to close out the week. We have the moon in Scorpio opposing Venus in Taurus, and in the tarot this is the 7 of Cups opposing the 5 of Pentacles on the Sunday. And Spirit is really hitting it where we believe. Whatever energy you want to hold on to and believe in is the energy that we will be experiencing in our physical reality. And if you believe in Spirit enough to trust and let go to divine, you're able to see how the lack you may have been experiencing now with this 5 of Pentacles here will not be your experience for much longer, because of your action based on your belief. If you've been hesitant and uncertain about whether or not to let go of old energy for the new cycle that is here, the lack you are experiencing will feel a bit more permanent and lasting. And the choice is up to us, and there are only 2 choices on a day like today with the energy. Our choices have consequences, and because we've been working on this concept pretty heavily for at least the past year, honestly, things are beginning to pick up in intensity, especially with the Scorpio energy today, and because of the nodes in these energies. Are you willing to wash your sins away and surrender your empty cups to Spirit, even while already feeling it's not much to give with the 5 of Pentacles? Are you able to accept help from others when you're not meeting your own standards and expectations? Can you accept help from others when you're not even meeting your own expectations? Is being stubborn just as valuable as your comfort and stability in physical objects? That comes into question with today's energy. Are you able to make emotional investments that connect with the current energy of seeing people as resources to help you continue the sprouting of your manifestations? We're in the spring season, remember. We're in this springtime now energy, so seeds are being planted. Old clutter and debris is being removed, and the trees and the flower buds are growing every day. So mimic nature, right? We are nature. So mimic nature and take on that same energy in your own life. Allow those emotions, those feelings, those blockages, right, that are allowing you to avoid making choices that will help you focus on the manifestations you want to grow, will be cleared away when you focus on relieving that with this full moon in Libra and these 3 days of the moon being in Scorpio after. right? Mimic nature and take on that same energy in your own life, and how you're creating sparks that will grow and supply warmth and comfortability in your lives and physical reality. I love this week. It ends on a really powerful note. So much transformation and emotions to deal with. These past couple of weeks for me have been, so much in 2 weeks. Like the excitement of all these creative ideas, the contrast between your plans for yourself and what other people want you to do for yourself, you and time management and making sure everything fits into your schedule, being able to take consistent action even though sudden things come about, maintaining boundaries. All of these things have been coming up for all of us. I'm going to go ahead and say thank you all for joining us for another episode of AstroTea. We really enjoyed your energy and look forward to seeing you next week, Sunday. So check out our link tree to join the email list, order your AstroTea products, and even book a personal consultation with us. Go ahead and join us at AstroTea here on Clubhouse and over on Instagram at AstroTea Universe to catch up between episodes. We love you all and have a terrific week.